A few years ago, I followed every rule in the content book: educate your audience, provide value content, tips and tricks, and even nurture your audience to kind of warm them up. And even I spent multiple hours to create lead magnets and freebies for them. And what exactly I got in return? A bunch of freebie seekers and maybe some people, smashing some like buttons and sending some fire emojis along the way. But when it comes to having real conversation with them, they ghosted me. Now it happened because the problem lies in the strategy itself. Now let me explain how my strategy would look like back then. So I was going through all the big coaches or consultants in my industry and looking for their top performing posts, the viral content, and kind of putting that into the chat GPT and trying to recreate that, restructure that into using a different flavor, using my spin. And it was such a hassle and time consuming, man. It was scary and didn't perform as the way I wanted to perform, to be honest. Number two was, I was writing long form comments because some LinkedIn guru I saw on the feed told me, you specialize in writing comments. So go out there, write long form comments on your competitors, your peers, kind of told me to have, a list of different kinds of influencers, top influencers, peers, and some people below me, or maybe my prospects. And I used to spend like hours writing down comments, and it was told that not to write comments just like hey, it's amazing, great share, so that it looks chat GPT or maybe inhumanly, whatever the word is. So what I did was kind of go to chat GPT and pasted the entire post and kind of tell chat GPT to write a comment under it. And I know a lot of coaches are still using that. It's like you're just faking your stuff here as a coach. You're just faking yourself here. You're making a fool out of yourself here in search of an engagement, because you believe if I comment on someone's profile, somebody is also going to reciprocate back. I don't know if that's been your strategy. It was my strategy and I was struggling bad with this. And lastly, the biggest one was, I was spending here about 3 hours to 4 hours every week to kind of brainstorm and find out a big idea, a new kind of an idea where I can create a training on, or maybe some checklist, or maybe a lead magnet on. So I spent hours actually creating those freebies. But the problem was when I was posting the content to kind of get people to raise their hands, I don't want to lie, I got few engagements who just raised their hand for the particular freebie. But again, as I told you already, when I used to give away the thing and maybe try to have a real conversation with them, that's when they ghosted. It was really, really that bad. It was like I had to reconvince people, to get back to me every time I post. And the worst part was I was only attracting freebie seekers. At the moment I stopped posting, those freebie seekers were also gone. So there was no leads, and sometimes a few leads, and those were freebie seekers. They're not open to have real conversation with me. They're only there to maybe grab some check boxes or cheat sheet or any free videos like that. So it was a tough situation back then. And that's when I felt, something had to change. Whatever I'm doing right now isn't gonna take me where I want to be. And that's when, I had a long conversation with Debjani, and we tried to figure out what was the issue back then. So because we were taking a lot of our time into coming up with good ideas and creating good content, educational content, I would rather say, like real value content. Like those were like literally value bombs. And we figured out that something is wrong in the process, because we are providing so much value. We kind of letting our audience letting our audience know that everything can be done going through our free content itself. So we were kind of teaching them how to be a DIY coach. They can easily consume my content and literally do their stuff. That was palatable, and that is what I figured out that is not making sense anymore. Like everyone tells, okay, provide more educational content, provide more value to your audience, but no one tells you exactly how it's gonna backfire in the longer run. And that exactly happened to us. And then we came across a study by Nielsen, when he said value content's gonna attract people who like freebie seekers, people who are not eligible to take action, or maybe they're just to collect some freebies from you. Rather, create content that shifts people's belief. That's when our new idea of disrupt content was born. But the job here was not to show people what needs to be done, rather show them what they're doing wrong and instead what needs to be done to get it right. And in doing the process, like solely focusing on flipping beliefs and shifting their beliefs and sharing my real opinion, looking into the process in a contrarian lens, that's when I started to get DMs from the exact audience base that I had. And I got DMs like, "Hey man, are you in my mind?" Question mark. Even I got someone saying, "Hey, I find all of your posts are talking to me. How could you read my mind?" And that's when you realize, okay, like providing value is good, but it's more important when you shift their perspective and show them like your way of doing things, not exactly showing how to do things. And in order to get to that outcome, we, as you know by now, that we focused on shifting beliefs by creating disrupt content, and we just stopped creating educational content and how to content. And if you're just right now a coach who's trying to get more eyeballs, have virality in your content, get more eyeballs and reach, maybe this is not for you. You need to just stop the video right now, because we don't chase virality anymore, because chasing virality is going to attract a lot of eyeballs and 90% of them not going to be right fit. Hence you're wasting a lot of time talking to people who are never going to respond back to you. Instead, we create content that resonates with our audience. Hence, when we start conversation, or the best part is they reach out to you. So that's what we call the inbound leads. So my opinion towards content and the process of creating content changed drastically after using this. Now let me share my screen and show you like there are multiple frameworks, in order to create disrupt content. But I'm going to show you like one of like 3 principles that I always use when it comes to creating disrupt content. So let's get back to the screen. So the first principle is evolution ladder. Now, depending on where you're at, because if you look into the coaching space, now it's divided into 3 different spectrum: starting, overcoming, and thriving, right? So I don't know where you're at right now, but there are a lot of coaches out there who are just starting right now. They haven't hit their first client yet, or maybe they haven't hit their first $10,000 yet. Now, there might be some coaches who are overcoming coaches, somewhere in between, intermediate coaches who have got a few of clients, they are currently maybe trying to get to $20,000 or $10,000 on a consistent basis. There are some overcoming coaches. And lastly, there are thriving coaches who are already successful to a point. Now, what I see most coaches do wrong here is they are creating content literally for every spectrum of their audience, because they believe, my target audience lies in my niche. Because if you look at an example of a business coach, as I help other coaches, right, to grow and scale. So I might say, okay, I'm going to help a coach who's starting out. I might be helping a coach who's overcoming, and I might be helping a coach who's already thriving. And I'm kind of creating content for all these 3 different spectrums. I'll tell you what, if you do that, is you're creating confusion. And as a result of that, confused buyers never ever buy. So instead, even if you're sure about your niche, even if you know, okay, what kind of person you're about to help, maybe it's like, let's say you're going to help dads. Now again, if you break that down, there might be 3 different levels of dad. There might be some like newly dad, some might be a dad of at least 10 years old, or might be a senior person, right? Extremely senior citizen who's also a dad. So depending on which particular segment or spectrum of your niche you're targeting, you need to create content around that. That's the most important thing. So quick example, if I'm looking at coaches who are just starting out, they might be interested in such kind of topics, right? So as I help coaches, right, I know the coaches who are starting out, they're interested about the mindset, like how to get their first client, or maybe how to niche down. That's been the most common question, as well as how to create course. They don't know exactly how to create programs. They don't know exactly how to record videos and lessons and create presentations using Canva. They don't know how to price their program, or maybe they need motivation to kind of help them move forward, right? So if you're helping coaches, don't say, I'm helping coaches grow and scale. Again, layer it down, like which particular spectrum you're helping people, right? So depending on your type of audience, you need to figure out, okay, what are some interesting topics, or the topics they might be interested on, right? So starting coaches might be interested in these topics. Now, if I'm looking at overcoming coaches, they might be interested in getting clients consistently or add another offer to the current offer, maybe transition into group program, mastering their messaging, this is important, and attracting the soulmate clients. Okay. Now, again, depends on their interest. If you can divide that into your niche, you'll also find different important topics for each of the spectrums. And if you look at thriving coaches, they might be interested in saving taxes, increasing profit percentage, increase monthly recurring revenue, onboarding, having a smooth onboarding process, leadership roles, increasing renewals, hiring a team, managing a team, building SOPs to run the business faster. Okay, so depending on which particular level they're at, they might be into similar, like different kind of topics. Now, what I find is most of us coaches generally are either working with overcoming coaches or the starting coaches. But you got to make sure that every content that you're creating, it doesn't, attract both different segments altogether. That's when you're creating confusion. If you're targeting overcoming coaches, make sure every piece of content that you create are around those topics. That's the most important thing. So this is the important principle that you keep in mind. And a quick homework for you guys. So for example, in this case, as I can see, the topics for overcoming coaches are like how to get clients consistently, how to add another offer, or transitioning to groups. So if you can find at least 5 or 6 points like this, and then dissectify each of the points by figuring out one positive emotion attached to it and a negative emotion that can be attached to it. So for example, like getting clients consistently, or maybe attracting soulmate clients, if that's been an important topic for overcoming coaches, some positive emotion attached to it would be, okay, waking up next morning, I know I will be getting one inbound lead messaging me exactly how can we work together. That's a positive emotion attached to it. A negative emotion attached to the same topic would be, oh, I need to message 50 people. I'm expecting somewhere between 20 of them to respond back. 5% or 10% of them gonna be having a real conversation with me in the DMs, or maybe 1% of the entire audience might be booking a call with me. So that's more of a hustle process. That's not how you find soulmate clients and get inbound leads, right? So that's a negative emotion attached to the similar topic, right? So that's kind of going to be a homework, find those topics, and for each of the topics, figure out one positive and a negative emotion so you can create content and talk about it. All right. So that's your principle number one. The principle number two is selling your big ideas first so that your offer becomes the right next step for your audience. What I mean by that is every piece of content that we create, we use three different lenses together. And when you combine the three lenses together, that's where you create disrupt content that attracts your soulmate clients, people who resonate with you, right? The thing is that the content that we create should talk about your identity, your big ideas, and mechanisms. So let me explain each of them. So identity is all about you, who you are as a person, like who you are, like what's your values, what's your principles, what kind of person you are, what's your hobbies look like. That's being the identity, because people don't buy programs, they buy coaches, right? So they need to buy into you first. Some of the example of principles and values in my case would be, I don't chase, I don't send cold messages, cold DMs. I rather work with people who reach out to me first. So those are the inbound leads, and hence I work with my soulmate clients. That's one of my principles. Second principle would be, I don't want to be investing my time and energy into creating a business that's going to burn me out. I'd rather have a business around my lifestyle, not the other way around. I can talk about more examples and more principles, like maybe I don't want to convince people to work with me. I don't want to prove that why am I the best option for them, and talk about how they can join me with a discount. Hence, I don't want to prove to people that why they should be working with me. I only want to attract people who resonate with me and they're going to be reaching out to me instead of me reaching out to them. I know 90% of coaches does exactly the opposite. They are kind of focusing on reaching out to people, having kind of a false rapport and running the burnout model to kind of attract, don't get inbound leads in the process. By the way, book a sales call, convince people on the call, and maybe handle some objections after sending the offer. And you get clients maybe because of the crazy promise or the guarantee that you made. And the clients maybe paid you, swipe their card, not because of who you are and not because of your process. They swipe their card because you made an amazing guarantee or amazing promise, a crazy promise. And as a result of that, they don't trust the process. They're skeptic throughout the process. Hence, when you tell them to do a certain thing and they don't do it, and they don't get results, and later they charge back. That's when they ask for refunds. That's when they're pain in the backside, to be honest. They leave the program and whatnot, refund stuff. I've been there, to be honest, so I know exactly how it works. Because our job here is, people believe that you need to have a separate marketing process and separate sales process. But to be honest, my content does the selling for me. So my marketing and selling all together happens in the content itself. Okay. So every content that you put, talk about who you are, because you need to sell yourself first. Next, your big ideas. Like, what are your big ideas? Like, what are your opinions? They can be contrarian. So hence we call our program Contrarian Coach Blueprint, because what are my opinions? My opinions are, we don't chase virality because it attracts freebie seekers, as I told you already. Number two, I don't do sales calls. I only sell in the DMs. That too, high ticket program, because I'm not talking and kind of convincing people in the DMs. I'm talking to people who reaching out to me in the first case and want to work with me, right? And more big ideas to follow, like, don't do educational content, don't do value content, because educational content attracts freebie seekers. Create disrupt content that attracts your soulmate clients. So those are my big ideas. So you need to make sure that you're selling your big ideas in your content. I'm not telling you to use all your big ideas all together in one piece of content, but every piece of content needs to have one piece of identity and one piece of your big idea into it. And lastly, the mechanisms, like what are the supporting factors or supporting materials you want to prove people around your big ideas. If I say, okay, we're going to help you get inbound leads, don't need to chase leads, you don't need to send cold DMs. What is the exact mechanism or the framework does the job for me? That's disrupt content. Disrupt content is one mechanism out of multiple mechanisms that we have in our program, right? So that is what you need to understand really well. Now, the thing is, people try to convince people and sell people their offers when they're on a call. And that becomes tough, and it's really tough because you need to convince people on your offer. But if you're able to sell people on yourself or on your big ideas, if I create content, I talk about, no, I don't like chasing people. I don't like to do cold DMs. I rather want people to come to me instead of me reaching out to them. There might be some people who are resonating with my idea and they'll say, I'm totally sold onto your idea. Even I don't like chasing. In that case, it's very, very easy for you to sell people on your ideas. And when people are already agreed and are already sold on your ideas, your offer just becomes the right next step for them. So you don't need to convince people and reconvince people to get to sign them up in your program. So that's your principle two again, to get back. Selling your big ideas in your content does the heavy lifting for you. So you don't need to convince people to buy your offer becomes the right next step for them. That's your key two. And your key three is your content should polarize. This is so important. I don't want to go viral, right? Hence, I want my content to be polarizing. Because if I'm saying things that everybody relates and everybody knows and everybody agrees to, I won't be attracting my soulmate client. I won't be attracting my tribe. If I have attract my tribe, the exact kind of people who resonate or think or behave like me, I need to throw rocks in a convention way and have to portray my contrarian way, because everybody believes that sales calls is the go-to mechanism when it comes to selling, right? So, like, you may ask anybody out there, like there are lots of sales coaches, I don't want to throw rock at them, but they'll tell you call is one of the best mechanism to close people. Whether I don't agree to that. I say, yes, it's 100%. I agree when it comes to convincing people on a call, but not on getting easy yeses. Because every time I put out content, I get people reaching out to me, something like, hey, are you reading my mind? Something like that. In that case, it shows that I'm creating content that's totally resonating with that other person. And maybe I want to make sure I'm using the leverage instead of kind of selling them into my offers into my program with my content. I rather leverage the existing elements that I have with me. I might send them a VSL, a mini VSL, like 10 minutes video, explaining my big ideas and my story behind it and why I do believe in their ideas, which looks similar to the kind of video I'm making right now. But in this video, I'm kind of showing you some of the principles. But in those cases, I might not show the principles. I'd rather talk about it and why I do believe in that fact. And then maybe point them towards some of the mechanisms to show them exactly how we do it and have a call to action at the end. So I'm not creating or sending multiple number of content, or not trying to focus on getting to kind of hack the algorithm to go viral or to go to be different. I'm rather leveraging the existing what do you call them, masterpieces or marketing materials that you have with you to the fullest to get show yourself different from the rest. So if I have to create a content, let's say I'll show you an example here. So example in this case, it says, instead of saying give value before you sell, that's what most people say, like provide value to your audience, nurture them hard so that they turn out to be your clients. I rather say, value content attracts non-buyers. So never ever do value content, because value content is going to attract freebie seekers and non-buyers. They'll never ever take action. That's going to be my hook, and that's going to polarize me, and separate me from the rest of the audience. And there will be very few people out there who have been experiencing the same thing with their content are going to be the first few people who's going to reach out to me. Make sense? So that's your third principle, which is your content should be always polarizing. And if you do this process, here are going to be some of the benefits I'm going to show you on the screen. So no more chasing people who love your content but never buy. Because I was there, people splashing out those emojis and some of the coaches hyping me up for doing the same. You're never going to have to relate to that anymore, because disrupt content filters out the noise and pre-sells the right people for you. Number two, every post builds demand instead of just visibility. So stop chasing the algorithm and finding the new trends and, I don't know, viral music or a trend that's going on, because you are creating right now only to create resonance with your audience. Number three, sales happen before you ever mention the offer, because you're not educating anymore, right? Because you're just shifting people's belief, and that's kind of sales in autopilot for you, because you're selling your big idea. Hence, as a result of that, your offer becomes the next step for them. And lastly, you attract soulmate clients, not just fans. Your content becomes a mirror. It makes the right people say, that's me, and they're going to jump in when the time is right. You don't need to convince and do follow-ups. I don't do follow-ups as well. That's also part of the principles. Okay, so again, here are like three important, I would say, framework in order to create disrupt content. But we do have multiple framework and rule book while we create disrupt content. I do have a PDF, where it shows the different principles in order to create disrupt content. It has a list of check boxes that you need to check it off while you're creating content using that, leveraging the most out of it. So if you want that, comment the word list. I'm going to send you the checklist, which includes all the different like disrupt content principles, as well as some of the templates that you can use, kind of copy and paste template, which you can use to create your disrupt content. And you're going to slowly and gradually realize the change that you're going to experience from your content itself. Okay. So yeah, that was all. Let me know if you need anything. Happy to share.